everyone overthinks nutrition and overcomplicates it, and that's hacking years off your life.
Yeah.
So I would say, dude, if you ate chicken parm and pasta every day, but you actually got sleep and you reduced your stress and your anxiety and stopped scrolling and stopped having imposter syndrome and FOMO and this and that and the other thing, and you were just chill, that's do that.
Let's talk a little bit about nutrition. Okay. And there's one thing I want to ask you about. So at the moment, and especially with a lot of these kind of interviews I'm doing, we're talking a lot about fasting, right? Because this balance between kind of longevity and this trade-off, think about, and you've spoken about this, an athlete, in the twilight of their career type thing, right? The I know he's retired, but the Tom Brady for the US listeners, the Alan Wynne Jones for the UK listeners, that kind of person. So how we hear a lot about fasting, right? And how, calorie restriction will extend lifespan and all that sort of stuff. But that's not necessarily always A, going to be the best for everybody all the time. And B, there's got to be a balance, right? Because muscle mass is extremely important for longevity too, right? We can't forget that. And then I think the third thing is, there's lifespan and there's health span. And you want to be able to walk up the stairs and carry your bag up the stairs, right? You don't want to be, I'm 133, but I'm emaciated. And, so how do you think about this kind of balance? People often talk about a trade-off between performance nutrition and nutrition for longevity. And I think you tread a really good middle ground whereby it doesn't necessarily have to be that trade-off. So could you talk a little bit about your kind of nutritional approach? And I realize it's not one size fits all, but kind of general guidelines that you might give if someone asked you about it.
I think a lot of that stuff is not great. Like I got into fasting for a while and did it, and intermittent fasting. I don't have anyone do it anymore. I don't think it's great. I mean, the people I work with are type A, they're high stress, so it's just another stressor. I don't even buy so much into the longevity thing. Who even knows?
Well,
Uh,
yeah, but you may, so I should have been clearer with the question. You'll people will go say 12 hours, right?
that's
That's not
fine. I
this.
like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the reality is, I don't know. I think everyone overthinks nutrition and overcomplicates it, and that's hacking years off your life.
Yeah.
So I would say, dude, if you ate chicken parm and pasta every day, but you actually got sleep and you reduced your stress and your anxiety and stopped scrolling and stopped having imposter syndrome and FOMO and this and that and the other thing, and you were just chill, that's do that. Do that than being obsessed with, oh, should I just eat egg whites and 4 ounces of liver and fast all day? It's like, bro, you're not getting anywhere with that. I guarantee you're not living a year longer doing any of that shit. All that stress and that OCD, it's too much. All the biohacking and the life extension, it's too much. I think it's doing more harm than good to most people. I think it's bullshit. Uh, just fuck it. Like optimize your sleep. Don't eat like an asshole. Eat healthy food, and that's gonna do it. That's gonna cover 99% of your base and reduce your stress. Like people are so caught up in all this stuff. Now, that being said, I eat super healthy. And I think you should. Like I eat meat and fruit and veggies and potatoes and rice, and I'll have a cheat meal. Like I'm a fat Italian, I'll have a cheat meal and totally be fine with it. Um, but that's my take on it. I think people get too nuts, and I would rather actually have people eating a lot of food. I would have them. I don't want them to be starving themselves because they're going to live to 120. I think that's a shit way to live. I want you eating as much as you can because everything is going to be better. And obviously, if you have, there's instances where you get an illness or you break a limb and you're like, oh, I'm going to fast for 72 days, 72 hours, and I'll be better. And yeah, there's some legitimacy to that, and that's been practiced for thousands of years. Nothing against that, but eat, dude. Like I think most people just need to eat more forever. Anyone that I know that's my age or older that's not eating enough, if I get them eating more, all of a sudden they don't get sick as much. Their immune system's better, their cognitive function's better, they sleep better, their sexual function's better, their recovery's better. Obviously, their strength gains, their muscle gains are better. And then you might say, well, is their fat loss better if they're eating more? Sometimes it is because they destroyed their metabolism and their thyroid's shot. Sometimes it isn't, but who cares? They feel exponentially better. And that's a trade-off too. There's always like, well, yeah, do you want to be 8% body fat, or even if you're older, 10%, and all those things I just named are going to be a little bit weakened, a little bit compromised. And unfortunately, as you get older, your face gets, skinny.
Yeah.
And so you don't look as great. Do you want that? Or are you like, oh, I'm good at 12, but I never get sick. My libido is still strong. I feel great in the gym. You got to make those trade-offs. And it depends on your genetics too. Like some people have amazing 1% genetics and they can be lean and strong and, robust and all these things, but that's very few and far between. So we always got to make that trade-off. And, yeah, I just think the obsession with longevity is doing more harm than good, quite frankly.
Yeah. And I think so. I was going to talk about this in the context of the kind of future and more general questions, but you touched on this earlier, and I think this is quite a good time to bring it up. So we have this kind of revolution of wearable technology, right? You mentioned Aura rings, Whoop straps. I use an Apple Watch, like all these technology, all these kind of ways in which we can see, like almost in real time, our kind of feedback. And I actually noticed, this is just an anecdote of mine, I slept better when I stopped tracking everything because I get kind of neurotic about it and be like,
Yeah.
oh, and I think you said something along these lines as well. Like I thought I was sleeping for like 7 hours. Turns out I'm getting like 5 hours and 6 minutes. Like what the hell?
Yeah.
This is, and then you get stressed about that, right? So
Yeah.
as you said, I think in some ways, the approach that you outlined, maybe using it for 90 days or using it on and off, for
Yeah.
example, to like
Yeah, for sure.
get an idea of where you are, and then maybe not all the time, and especially if you go on holiday, like vacation or whatever, perhaps.
No, I understand holiday.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But as I said, my wife's American, so I try to kind
Yeah.
of speak both. But
Yeah, but I think for a lot of people it becomes another stressor. Like you
absolutely.
said there, when they start freaking out. So I don't use it all the time. I hadn't used it in probably a year and a half, and I just started using it again recently. And then like today I feel amazing, and my score was 63. So I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna go train. And then halfway through my workout, I might not feel that great, but I feel great now. So whatever.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can kind of psych you out. Like I've had sessions where my heart rate variability showing is really low, and actually it's one of the best sessions I've had that week. So
Yeah.
sometimes, as you said, like it's you got to take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, that's
Yep.
another thing, but we could get onto that, electrolytes and not over consuming water. That's a tip that I think a lot of people, especially our kind of type A people that Unfiltered's aimed at and that you work with a lot, maybe talk a little bit about that kind of thing. So people think it's great to, and obviously you want to stay hydrated, right? But not necessarily having, I've got to drink my 6 liters of water a day. I can't go to bed. I had a client who was like, I couldn't go to bed until I finished my water allocation for the day. And you're like, oh man, that's taking a good thing. And
Yeah.
as you said, like maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think that's another kind of renegade position that.
Yeah, well, we have this weird cult of hydration and fitness where everyone's like obsessed with just chugging water and peeing clear. If you're
Yeah.
peeing clear, that's a sign that your body's stressed out. And if you're spending all day in the bathroom, your body's stressed out. You have just, catecholamines, adrenaline, cortisol just skyrocketing. If your dog is peeing clear, you take him to the vet. So it's actually not what you should have. You should have, it shouldn't, if you pee, it shouldn't look like there's a beer in the toilet, but you should have, like pale yellow urine. So that everyone was like wanting to win an award for the clearest pee, but that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't drink electrolyte. I mean, I don't drink water without electrolytes. At the very least, put some sea salt in there. You could, squeeze some lemon in there, or just use something like Element or Redmond Relight, or one of those are great. Because that was kind of the idea of a Gatorade in the 80s, was like, oh, you don't hydrate well with water, which is true. With pure water, you don't. You do need some electrolytes in there. Obviously, Gatorade was not the greatest product for that, and now we have way better options. But you don't, like, you got to understand, like, what are you getting out of drinking that much water?
Yeah.
Do you feel any better? No, I'm just peeing all day and I'm peeing all night, so my sleep is fucked up, like you just said. That's not good at all.
No.
And anyone that's type A that's chugging water, I tell them, all right, stop chugging so much water. Like, what? I thought that was the healthiest thing in the world. I go, give me 3 to 5 days, stop drinking so much water, cut it down to like very minimal amounts. And they're like, oh my God, I have less anxiety and less stress, and I feel so much better. I'm like, well, there we go. Now let's just get to like a manageable, like, drink when you're thirsty. have electrolytes, and then just see what your pee looks like and see how your performance is. I'm not saying don't drink any water, but it doesn't have to be this crazy thing. Maybe it's 6 glasses, maybe it's 8 glasses. I don't know what it is. It depends too what you're doing. If you're training twice a day and you're outside and it's 90 degrees, yeah, drink a ton of water, but like don't do it just to do it. There's all these things in fitness that we do just to do, and everyone doesn't know why.
Absolutely. And I think people get caught up on these arbitrary numbers, and especially
Yeah.
like the amount of people who said, oh, I got to hit my water allocation before I go to bed. And you're like,
Yeah.
why?
Why?
Like just common sense as well, like would dictate, as you said, you're going to be waking up in 2-3 hours. It's going to compromise your sleep. Maybe not the best thing. So, okay. One thing I've wanted to ask you about. So I've followed the podcast for a long time. Right. So I remember since like episode 1. I remember listening to episode 1. So this is going back, as you said, almost 500 episodes, which is a huge achievement in itself, right? What, you're at like 498 or something?
Yeah, I think so.
So one of the things that I think people from the unfiltered kind of market would be really interested in is you've talked about being a bit of a foodie, right? And like in your words, not mine, your words, being like a fat Italian or whatever, right? So you clearly like food and you like good food, right? Being a bit of a foodie. So how do you think about kind of balancing food eating for like fuel and function, which we have to do a lot of the time if you care about body composition, versus like eating, beautiful meals, Michelin-starred restaurants and stuff? How do you kind of balance the two? Because people would say, oh, I'm not going to give up my beautiful whatever. And it's like, well, you kind of find a way of having both, right? You kind of have a balance there. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think if you've been on discipline, you've been out of shape, people will start a diet and go, when do I get a cheat meal? It's like, yo, your whole life was a cheat meal. Let's get strict. Let's prove that you can do 30 days strict. No cheat meals, right?
Yeah.
And then what is your goal? If you have a ton of weight to lose, let's get closer to that, start chipping away at it. Then if as you well know, if you have more muscle mass, you have more leeway with what you can eat. So let's build muscle.
Yeah.
A lot of people just say, oh, I got to lose fat. Let me do circuits and cardio and stuff. No. Build muscle. So then you'll have more leeway in terms of what you can eat. Shockingly, optimize your sleep. You'll be able to get away with what you can eat a little bit more because everything will just be more efficient. Reduce your stress. And then, one of the from the dawn of time, people sat down to break bread and enjoy meals. Like that's how people bond. That's how people come together. That's how relationships are built. That's how businesses are built. Everything. So, sitting down to share a meal. And you can do that. Like there's some people who have eaten like shit their whole lives. They're like, oh, how do I got to eat with everyone? I'm like, bro, you can order a steak and veggies and a baked potato. Like that's easy. But to your point, I want to taste all the things. Like I appreciate, that's who I am. Like I appreciate art and culture and music and all that kind of stuff. So I want to try the best stuff and do that. So if you're good, meaning, you get your steps in every day, you get your sleep in, you're training, if you're someone who wants to have that kind of food, then you should probably be training at least 4 days a week. I'm not going to say train 2 days a week and do 5 minutes of cardio and you're going to be able to eat that. You got to earn it in a way, right? But if you do those things, then yeah, I'm not going to miss out on those experiences with great friends. And I think also you need to weigh, which as I get older, I don't love it as much because how does it make you feel the next day? And for how many days after that does it make you feel like shit?
Yeah.
So, that's different for everybody. That's why I think everyone should do something like a paleo AIP or elimination diet for 30, 60, 90 days, whatever. Take probiotics, digestive enzymes, any kind of gut health thing, take a bunch of glutamine, maybe take oral BPC 157 to like anything you could do. And then have those strategies in place too. Like if you're going to eat a bunch of shit, okay, cool. Maybe you take some extra stuff that day, that night after, the next day, whatever, mitigate it. And then just wait, you got to decide what it does, how much it affects you and if it's worth it to you. To me, it's not as worth it as it used to be. So I'm not going to do it all the time.
I notice you've evolved a lot, like from,
yeah,
I remember that first podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, but you just, I guess that's one of the things of getting older. Like you can't bounce back as quick. So I'm going to have a little bit of a headache the next day. I'm going to have a little bit of brain fog. Body's going to be a little stiff. But if I had the most amazing meal with friends that I love, that's worth it to me. You got to decide what's worth it to you.
Exactly. So there are two things I want to kind of pick out of that are really important. So the first thing, I think people talk about longevity all the time. And as you said, fasting and the latest, greatest supplements and all that sort of stuff. and then but then they're living like a monk, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps, consider the value of social connection and having an active social life and catching up with people and laughing and having a good time. That you could argue, and perhaps you might argue, I don't want to lead you, but like would do you more good from a longevity perspective, having a great time,
100%.
having fun, laughing, all that stuff.
Yeah. My friend Dr. Chris Moore had a great line one time where he said it's better to eat a pizza with friends than eat a salad alone.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, there's just the importance of that and the value of that. And there's so much more to being healthy than just what you eat, And,
and people having their identity defined by what it's like, you need to probably have something better going on. Like, as you said, if that's your entire identity, like, oh, I'm keto or I'm what, that's always.
Now, I will say that if you're eating shit on your own, then you're a fat bastard and you got to check yourself. I'm only going to eat shit if it's with friends and I'm sharing that experience,
Yeah. I think it's like drinking.
Alone, exactly. Then you got a problem.
Like drinking alone. Yeah.
Then we got a serious problem.
I totally agree. And I think also one of the things, I think maybe we've seen it in your evolution as well, but it's not all like you can kind of retrain your taste buds, right? To the point where bison and blueberries, delicious, right? Like 99% as good as that, cordon bleu Michelin starred meal.
Yeah.
And like you can really retrain your palate. So a little bit of sea salt.
Totally.
On nice, good quality meat, and you're away, right? Like
delicious, absolutely delicious.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So you don't feel like you're missing out. You don't feel like.
No, before we got on, I had bison. I cooked up bison. I put it in a bowl. I had some bone broth in there, so it was kind of like soupy and mushy. I cut a half avocado, put it in there, a ton of blueberries in there, and then I had a few oranges after that. I was like, this is it's so delicious, like mind-blowing delicious. I had sea salt on it, so good.
Exactly. So, it's not all sort of like a Spartan existence, as you said. You really can enjoy it. So I think that's important. So the one kind of final thing, because I'm conscious of time on nutrition, is one of the things that you said that I think people need to kind of understand is when they ask you about supplements, for example, and people say, oh, would you take this pre-workout? Would you take that? And I think you said this a long time ago, but the best supplements are the supplements that improve your health or your sleep or whatever, right? So something like magnesium or whatever it might be that's going to help you sleep is actually going to do a hell of a lot more for you, even in that workout, than that crazy pre-workout with 500 milligrams of caffeine where you're bouncing off the walls and then, you have that terrible crash as well. But maybe, talk a little bit about how you view kind of supplementation.
Yeah, all through the late 80s and 90s, I tried every bodybuilding supplement, and I don't think nothing did a single thing. Not one of those did anything. I spent like, I don't know, 100 grand on all that stuff over the years. It did nothing. But like you said, there's supplements that enhance your health, do make a difference. Magnesium makes a huge difference. I would say one of the top 3 to 5 things I've done in the last 5 to 7 years would be magnesium, taking more really high quality magnesium, and taking electrolytes. I just like my overall performance and my health is so much better with those 2 things. Vitamin D. I think you should get outside and get your vitamin D if you can, but then still some people, they can go out for 2 hours a day and their vitamin D is still low for whatever reason. So then you probably got a supplement.
Especially you live in the beautiful UK with the beautiful weather. Supplement's probably useful for 6 months of the year at least. Yeah.
And like I said, if you have one of the main things I think people should look at improving is their gut health. And a lot of people just have really poor digestive health. So anything that's going to help that works for you, like, I mentioned some of those things earlier, those would really be my main go-tos for most people. And then if you're a little bit older and your blood work shows it, we could say like, oh, maybe you should take things like nattokinase for, this and maybe citrus bergamot for that. Like there's a few things like that, but none of those are going to get you jacked. There's really nothing that's really going to get you jacked unless it helps your sleep and recovery, like you said, and then it's kind of like in a roundabout way it does. None of those
indirectly
supplements do anything,
Yeah, exactly. But a healthier body has the potential to be more jacked and recover better and all that kind of stuff as well. So I think that's really important. And you touched on it earlier. You mentioned it earlier, but like a paleo AIP type diet and kind of figuring out, because I might be okay with certain things that you're not great with, and vice versa, right? So I think figuring out what works for you, but and as you said, not obsessing over it, you know, not kind of obsessing over any one detail of anything, but kind of focusing on that forward trajectory generally.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So
I just recently been dealing with a stomach parasite, which has been a nightmare. I lost like over 10 pounds and my
yeah,
stomach's just wrecked. And in a weird way though, you always, you know, kind of look at the bright side of things. Like it's helped me refocus on gut health. So I've been taking all the things now, dialing it back in. And now obviously, you know, when you see the scale down, your shirts start getting bigger, you want to get back quick. So it's good because it helps me get it, because it's been so many years since I've had to force feed like that. Not that I didn't have to, I just chose not to anymore because I've been doing it for 20 plus years and I kind of just got comfortable with the weight I was. But now I get it. Like when people, because I used to be like, when people were like, dude, I can't eat that much. I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. You're being a pussy, whatever. But I'm like, yeah, dude, it's a lot of work. Like I'm eating a lot and it's
yeah, it's like
work.
a part-time job, right?
Yeah.
No, I get it. I did the same thing. I tried to get as big as possible for sport reasons, and you know,
Yeah.
as you said, like you kind of dread eating, dread the next meal, and
Yeah.
I
And
I have
especially now because I don't want to eat junk at 4 meals a day. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah.
geez, this is a lot of clean food.
Yeah, as you said, like it's actually, you can eat a lot of food and it doesn't work out as that many calories if you're eating nutrient dense, good
Yeah.
quality,
Yeah.
and like relatively. I think another thing that has actually really helped me, and I pass this on to people like clients before, is eating lower fat meat. So people will be like, "Oh, I'm eating grass fed meat. It's great," and you're like, "Yeah, sure, it's great, but it's 80% lean, therefore 20% fat."
Yeah.
And you wonder why, you know, and you're knocking back, you know, 3 pounds of this a day. So it's those sorts of
So many
things.
people do that. That was the way I first got visible abs, was going from 85% meat down to 95% lean and even 99. Like I don't know if you're able to get it there, but NorthstarBison.com has 99% lean bison and ground beef. It's unbelievable. And that was what I had to do, you know, for that year when I lost like 30 pounds of fat, was just doing that, watching. Because a lot of people, like you said, they think, oh, I'm eating healthy, but it's like, yeah, bro, you're eating 200 grams of fat a day.